I want to talk about now the benefits that we have negotiated, that we fought for. And I want to help guys understand where they come from. Like everybody sits there, for example, 401k, guys sit there and say, the league matches our 401k. That's not totally true, is it, JC?
No, it's different. So a little bit of a math lesson here. We are a revenue sharing business. So what all of the revenue that gets brought in by the NFL, we get a cut of that pie, which is a little more than 48%. We just finished negotiating, or the league finished negotiating the YouTube Sunday ticket deal. So our percentage is still being worked out because of the media kicker. So we get 48.234% of all revenue. And that's one thing that I somewhat laugh at whenever the league signs a big new TV deal. You always get the people who are like, oh, NFLPA got hoodwinked. Like, why? They're not getting any of this. It's like, no, we want them to sign the biggest deals possible because we get our percentage of all of those deals. So if we were making math easy, we get 48% of all the revenue brought in by the league. If we say, I took some notes for easy, quick math. If the league brings in $18 billion in revenue, we get 48% of it, which is about $8.6 billion. We get for all player costs. Anything that players receive, that comes out of that 48%. About 80% goes to the salary cap, which is about $6.9 billion or about $216 million per club. And then 20% goes to benefits. All of those benefits we're talking about comes out of our player share. And that's about $1.7 billion or $54 million per club, which funds all the benefits, the 401k, the cap, the player performance, all of those. The player performance is a great thing. That came up with by the players. The players came up with this idea of how do we get more money in the pockets of what we deem our core players, which are the minimum salary guys, the special teams guys. And the more you play, the more you get paid. Coming up with those benefits and finding ways to get money to people evenly distributed, where everybody's getting their share, no matter if you're a starter, no matter if you're a backup, if you're a Hall of Fame player, or you're just scraping by, getting on a roster, 53rd man, you're all getting that same benefit. That all comes from our player share.
And this all came to light, I guess. And I guess became a public issue because of Damar Hamlin situation. Thank goodness he's okay. Thank goodness, everything worked out and he's still recovering. And it's been a blessing, because it's had a lot more positive press than negative. And I think more positive have come from it. But people learn that, hey, we don't have lifetime health care. We got 5 years of health care after we're done. And it's been a point of contention for a lot of players for a long time. Like, that's something we want as players. And as now a former player now, you think, oh, you think we're not in the room fighting for a lifetime healthcare? You think we're not sore and hurt every game? We are. Now, the league fights us as hard as anything, any subject, anything we fight for. They are hardest against that and money. Why is that?
I think unlike probably other sports leagues, I think the NFL specifically looks at the pie, that all revenue, as their money. And it's almost like they're gifting it to us through negotiations of like, you guys can have this 48%. I think other leagues look at it more of a partnership, and that, it only operates because both groups are efficiently working together. I think our league is probably the most adversarial of any, where it really is looked at as the owners see it as their money, and they do not like giving it up to us. So I think that's really what it's looked at. I want to point out one more thing, because when we talk about all the benefits, there are some benefits I think players aren't always aware of, and I know fans aren't aware of, where I don't like speaking on one particular issue, but if you look at a guy who gets hurt and can never play again, a lot of people say, like, what happens? How do they get taken care of? We have like the injury protection benefit, which for a guy that can't ever play again, the next year, if he can't play, he gets 100% of his salary. That's a benefit. The next year, this is a change in the CBA. Previously, it was 50% of his salary. The second year, he gets 100% of his salary again. So if a guy gets hurt, he has protection. He's still getting his full salary, even though it's not guaranteed contracts, which we can get into. That's a benefit of how do you creatively find ways to protect guys in the most vulnerable situations to make sure they're taken care of. And those are the things that nobody hears about, that realizes our union has done that work and has put thought and planning into protecting players' money and making sure they're taken care of. And again, those are fights. I saw, I was reading through your Twitter comments when you were asking about like what questions, and people were asking about win-wins. We wish the league would look at player safety or player protections or player benefits as win-wins, right? But they don't. They don't look at it as win-wins because they look at it as their money. And anytime they're giving up their money, they see it as a loss. So all of those are always fights. It's never simple. Like, well, that should be easy. You should easily be able to protect players who have career-ending injuries on the field. It ain't easy. It ain't an easy answer. We can go into the fights we had over concussions for years before we got the league to take them seriously. And then to get UNCs on the sidelines and the years it took for us to get them to take it seriously. This is not have a good idea, it makes sense, do it. It's have a good idea, fight for years to get it in, and then finally get it in.
And that's why we need the fans to really, I mean, you guys love players. You guys, this moment showed there's a lot of love from these fans for these players. But that love needs to be shown when there are issues that players have to work in their best interest. When teams are working in their best interest, we hear fans all the time. Hey, they cut a player with 2 years left on his deal. Hey, it was in the best interest of the team. Hey, the team had to do what the team had to do. Fans seem to always understand that. But when a player does something where it's in the best interest of the player, it's never the player did what he had to do. We support him. Hey, the player's doing what he had to do, whether it's a holdout, whether it's him sitting through training camp, not coming to OTAs, whatever the case may be. We need that same energy from the fans. And when we're talking about benefits, because we talk about the salary cap, and the salary cap is supposed to jump this year, with all this money, these new media rights deals, the YouTube deal included, but that's not going to come in until down the line, obviously. But people talk about, hey, like, why can't you ask for this? Or why can't you get this? Or why can't you? A benefit comes off the cap. So if we didn't have benefits, if we didn't have HRAs, annuities, we didn't have tuition reimbursement, player performance, we didn't have TMP, we didn't have any of the benefits the players had, the salary cap would be, what, 250 right now? 260 something?
Yeah, it's that world where it's finding that fine line, and that's why we have so many opinions and so many thoughts, and our membership is so diverse. In a world where, if you're doing the math, we could have a world where the salary cap is $270 million and we're giving $0 in benefits. And there's probably some people out there, probably who play quarterback, who are saying, that's great. Like, give me more salary cap space. I'll be making $100 million a year. But the same thing, if you go the other extreme and we had $160 million in benefits and then only, 110 in the salary cap, that's not the perfect balance either. So you're always trying to find that perfect balance of how much benefits to give, how much do we put in the salary cap, how do we balance these issues, how do we make sure guys are protected and we're giving everybody a fair, equitable share of the benefits. Those are the discussions, and it's never as simple because, again, the money's been spent. We get 48% of the revenue. So any new idea can be a great idea, and then you have to figure out how to pay for it. And it comes from two ways. You either get more revenue through negotiations, you get to 49, 50, 51, 52%, where now we've opened up more revenue to build in new benefits, or you have to take a benefit away or take the cap down. So if you come up with a new benefit and you say, okay, well, this is going to cost $10 million a year. Okay, well, that's $10 million off the cap. And you have to weigh those positives and negatives. It's not as simple as just ask for it, get it, and then it falls into the equation. You have to make it fit in the equation.
You have to make it fit. And some of the things that we've made fit are benefits such as preseason pay. Now, fans don't know about preseason pay. They just assume if they're playing a football game, they're making their normal salary. They are not. In the preseason, I think rookies make about, it's up now, probably $1,200, $1,300 a game. Vets make a little under $2,500. If I'm remembering it correctly, it's been a year since I played. And the playoffs. Everybody thinks, the playoffs, the most spectacular thing that league has. It's our prettiest prize. Everybody's going for the Super Bowl. You would think guys are making the most money then. No, it's a benefit paid for from our side of the pie that we have to divvy out. And the thought process when you divvy this out and you cut it up, you're thinking of the grand scheme. Like, hey, everybody doesn't make the playoffs. So you can't allocate a substantial amount to something everybody won't benefit from. But you still want guys to benefit from it. So you got guys, you got the quarterbacks, the big money guys take huge pay cuts in the playoffs. People don't understand this. Take huge pay cuts. They're almost going from making whatever they're making to the minimum. to the minimum in our league to play in these playoffs. Some guys make more in one check. And sometimes it's a quarter of their check. Then they would make the entire playoffs, including a Super Bowl win. There are guys that would make that in one game. So when fans are really thinking about these things, you're like, hey, these guys are doing this or these guys are doing that. These guys are fighting to win. They're not in the playoffs fighting for a check or like, hey, like, oh man, I'm about to get paid. Imagine going from making, some guys making 7 figures a game to making 25,000.
Yeah, I think it's also easy I think people will hear that snippet right there you said and be like, oh, it's the classic, oh, the PA sucks. Like, how could you do that? And that's until you discuss the nuance of it, of the balance between more and fair, right? Like, it's easy to always just be like, oh, well, they should get more. It's like, okay, well, what's fair, right? Like, is more pay them their exact salaries from the season? Okay, that's going to come out of benefits, which means either we have to shrink the salary cap down, which means everybody else, the teams that don't make the playoffs have less salary cap, they're making less money because of it, or shrink the benefit pool down. And now just, the quarterback that's already making $50 million in a year needs to make his extra $4 million per game in the playoffs. That's more, but is that actually fair? And there's no right answer. It's all a balance. And that's why we're a democracy and we vote on how this is broken up. And that's the thing that, we harped on at the beginning of this. The PA is the players. So if you have a problem, you get one voice, you get one vote. And you come and use it. And if we had a world where all 2,000 players said, I want to go to rep meeting and I want to sit there and I want to learn and I want to voice my opinion, we'll fly everybody out to rep meeting. Like we have enough resources to do it. So there's no limit of, oh, I wish I could, I would, but they won't let me. You want to come, we'll bring you out there. And there's been so many conversations with guys who have gone into a rep meeting or we have a leadership summit with a bunch of young players in LA who have gone in kind of thinking like, man, I hear all these bad things about the PA. And then they sit there and have a conversation with you for 30 minutes and you dive into these things and they leave being like, I didn't know. I just didn't know. And now I get it. And I get it. And I want to be more involved. And it's hard to have 2,001 off conversations. So I think this will be really helpful, hopefully, to teach and show the more guys that get involved and put their voice and put their opinions out there, the more fair things will be because we're hearing from more people.